Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aluminum Roundtable. I see you all munching in the back. Would you come up to the front? We have some legendary characters, I've been informed, on our panel, which should make it easier for me. There's the lady with the sharp pencil aimed at me. I'm just checking. It's our attorney.
It's a nice way to say it.
But I'm not going to start until we get everybody kind of settled in.
That's a pretty good size group. That's not too bad.
And get my note out. While we're just getting organized and are we rolling on the videotape, I want to make sure we get this on tape. I'm Terry Savage. I'm your moderator. I've enjoyed moderating a couple of panels over the last few days. I had to do a lot of homework, but the best learning came from asking the questions that I hope some of you thought were naive and I hope others of you thought were maybe penetrating. By background, I'm not a stranger to the markets. I, in fact, started my career as a founding member of the Chicago Board Options Exchange and was a trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where I, as I explained, quickly learned that I'm much better talking about it than doing it. So hats off to Lucy. Really, I put my time in. And then I just retired after 23 years on the board of directors of CME Group. And you know that because of our contracts that relate to your various markets. So I've been very interested in the markets for a long time. I was fascinated as they billed me as an economist, but I don't do that. But I'm on the air, TV, radio, and write a syndicated column about personal finance and the economy. So when the tariffs came, I went, wait, how does that work? That's really going to mess things up. Is this good or bad? Which is where I really want to get to today. So again, welcome all. Come and take a seat. I'm going to read you a statement so that you know we're playing by some really strict rules and that won't stop me from trying to get a big picture. But there's a lady in the front seat who will attack if I go off bounds. Let me read to you this. As with all ReMA events, we follow a strict code of conduct and antitrust policy. Details of both are available on the ReMA website. They are also on flyers around the room. Yeah, but we're going to talk about prices. Excuse me, ma'am. We're just not going to collude on prices. We're going to talk about where this market has been and what has been the impact of the tariffs and on the marketplace. So let me start by introducing just briefly our three panelists, and we'll start with the markets. Okay, but just to my left, and I think many of you know each other, but Eric Hinkelman, Chief Commercial Officer of Pure Aluminum, which is a Michigan-based aluminum processor, and he has an exciting story to tell. They're about to start a pour on their new greenfield plant, and it's going to be game-changing, and I will just tease with that, okay? And in the middle, Lucy Winchell, Director of Aluminum. I know all of you know her. You were all running up to her in the coffee area at Traxxas North America, a global trading company, and Lucy specializes in the aluminum trading and marketing initiatives. In other words, she knows the markets inside and out. But we are not, I promise Lucy, promise you, not going to ask for a forecast. Okay. And then at the anchor position, Mark Schupan, the CEO of Schupan and Sons. I mean, that huge family-owned company founded in 1968, which is just the king of aluminum recycling. I'm going to ask Mark for his perspective after we first ask Lucy. Lucy, I tried to do a little research on this, and it's those tariffs really had an impact on the market. Could you just give us not only pricing, but supply impact? Where were we at the end of last year before we knew that tariffs were really coming? And then what happened with the two-tier tariffs, and how's that affected both the raw material and scrap?
Sure. Well, from the end of last year, we were already in a 10% tariff environment, which was, established during the Trump first administration. And, we felt that, he was coming in with the tariff agenda. And quickly, I think it was in, pretty early in his administration, probably it was March timeframe, the tariffs went up to 25%. And then the real shocker was in June when he raised it to 50%. And this is historic in the industry. We've never had tariffs this high. And the resulting Midwest premium, which is totally driven by the cost, various costs of transportation and financing, as well as bringing the goods from wherever they're coming from. But the tariff cost has to be covered by Midwest premium as well, which is now over 75 cents.
Up from what, say, a year ago?
Probably
30.
25 to 30 cents. So it's historic. It's a unique time. No matter how long we've been in the industry, none of us have faced this scenario before.
Explain. The rationale was, I'm looking from the outside, but tell me how the industry reacted, not you personally necessarily, but the rationale was we're going to make America independent and we have domestic manufacturing, but this is primarily raw materials that we import, and primarily I did call on CME Group, the metals department, and said, make me an expert in all these metals. But it's mostly coming from Canada.
Right.
There was that whole kerfuffle with Canada and then the step up. When the tariffs first went up, did you get a sense like, all right, we're going to mine for bauxite and we're going to have smelters and we're going to put smelters back in business? So by keeping imports out or raising their prices, how did you think that was going to work?
Well, I think the government simply thought that might happen, that this would encourage additional smelting capacity to either reopen here or start up again. But it's not practical because, you need assurances of the prices staying at a certain level, and also all the inputs, especially energy, which is a huge component to making aluminum. It's probably 50% of the cost, if not more. None of that was probably thought out completely.
Okay.
Because I don't think anyone is really rushing to open smelters here again. So we are very dependent on at least the Canadian supply, which has now been cut off because there's no exemptions at all on the 50% tariff. We've seen it happen before. I think all year we're all kind of on edge and waiting to see if anything will change on the current tariff levels, but so far it hasn't. So
in my research, okay, the Canadian aluminum producers have been diverting shipments away from the U.S.
Yeah.
And aluminum imports dropped dramatically in April and May, even before it went up to 50%. So where does this leave manufacturers that use aluminum? We had the report of wholesale prices this week, producer prices. And it was a negative, a slight negative. Who's paying those tariffs? Or are we just not getting the aluminum?
Well, we're not getting the aluminum, as you said. There has been all the normal trading routes and imports have changed now, with so much of the Canadian metal going elsewhere. And there had been some metal buildup in warehouses in the U.S., but that's also quickly depleting. So manufacturers, I think, are very concerned about where their supplies are coming from for next year. And it takes time also to fill the pipeline. And we've been really starved of metal here for the last, 6 months. So
let me take you one step further to scrap. What has been the implication for scrap going back before and through this tariff process?
Well, scrap has always been a big component of supply for most mills. Everybody tries to maximize their scrap usage. Maybe Mark or
I'm getting
Eric
there.
would like to
I'm
talk
going to
about
jump to
that
Mark
more.
in 1 minute. But what's been the implication for the scrap?
Well, the scrap is not subject to the 50% tariff, neither on imports, and of course and there's much more scrap available in the U.S. So that's been very good for the scrap side of the market. And I guess all the mills are happy they have that at least. And that's probably also tempering the additional cost of the primary aluminum.
Gotcha. Well, now, so I see, Mark, Mark, you have a big smile on your face.
I do.
Yeah, you do. You tried to control it, but I could see it. That is scrap. Let's talk about what's happened in the scrap market. Give us a little background. You know, I've been told of your legendary history. To me, this is a great opportunity. I've been really yelling, no, put your cans in the other container. I've been trying to be a good steward of the earth. I would think my teenage granddaughters would have bought into that, but I don't think so. So the question is, we've all been trying to recycle our aluminum cans. Someone once told me that doesn't matter. They just dump them in the junkyard. But now I met you and I found out that it's a huge business. So what has happened with the scrap business as a result of these tariffs?
I just want you to know, she asked me that question when I was sitting down here. I'm like, that wasn't what I was asked originally. I'm like,
I'm going to get to what you want to talk about.
Okay, well, at any rate, it's nice to have tailwinds we're in the scrap business, and 2024 was certainly nothing but headwinds. And so we're watching this, like on a daily basis, with our breath. We're holding our breath, trying to make the best we can of making sure we can control inventories, keep things moving. And tomorrow the president could say, you know what, Canada, we love you again. And instead of 50, we're at 20. I mean, they say they're not going to do it and this and that, but you've seen what's been going on. I just don't want to start with nothing and work my way up to an extreme state of poverty under these conditions. But, so it's been absolutely interesting. As I mentioned to you before, if you're an economist, I've always said those who use crystal balls must learn to eat glass. So I don't know that there's anyone that's going to tell you, if you could tell you where it's going to be next week, week after, whatever. But I think the thing is for the scrap industry is to take advantage while we can, make sure we keep things moving, make sure we are not in a bad inventory situation. Again, hedging, everybody has different ways of, can we hedge the premium? Can we not hedge the premium? The other thing is we're distributors in manufacturing, so that affects us differently. We are seeing some manufacturing that was in China coming back to the U.S., some of our customers, and they're also obviously moving to some other parts of the world. So we're following that, and that does make a difference. There's no doubt about it. But as far, again, we'll go back. Lucy did a great job of basically finitely telling you where things are and what they're doing. But it's going to continue to be a challenge to figure out.
Well, you just said something, maybe it's because I don't, how you would do that, but you just said don't get in a bad inventory position, manage your inventories. Well, if there are all these possibilities, these diverse possibilities, everything from the prayer of maybe they'll see the wisdom of their ways and fall back in love with Canada and lift the tariffs to the impact on scrap. What is the advice for, quote, managing your inventories? Do you accumulate them now because the spread?
Everybody has their own philosophies. We've never been speculators anyway, but our philosophy is to try to move as much as we can every month, keep our inventories at a minimum, hedge certain things. I've got a really incredible team of people that do that. And I get all the credit, but no, when things are good, I'm doing well. No. So that's really,
so these are very sophisticated pricing markets. Now the spread has widened. When you said take advantage of, how do you take advantage of that and not get caught if the tables turn?
Well, the spreads, because we can't really talk pricing too much, but on certain scrap items have really widened from where prime is to where scrap is today. And so you keep an eye on that and you see, okay, a great part of our business is industrial. Besides we have a great trading group that buys from all over the country and sells all over the world. But, again, we're being very, very careful that if we have the opportunity and we have some good marketers to get a position, take that position and fill it and go on to the next.
Okay, let me ask you this one more question before I go on.
I don't know if I've been helpful at all.
Oh yeah, you are. I want to know. what keeps you up at night?
Well,
I mean, about the aluminum market.
well, I had a hip transplant 6 weeks ago. That's keeping me up quite a bit, and it's pain or whatever. Well, we've had a very good June, July, August, and then it's always what will September bring. We started out reasonably strong there, and we're just taking 1 month at a time. And again, as our goal is, if we're successful enough, we're going to have some really good bonuses for our employees this year, which they'll have earned. So that's exciting for me. What keeps me up at night is to make sure that I hope we can do these things. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. So
Okay.
if anything, I would say that probably. I'm very comfortable. A year from now, the next generation will be taking over, which is Jordan over there, and he's very capable, and he's got a great team around him. So most people say, well, aren't you worried about that? I said, no, I'm not. We'll be ready. So, and I've been doing this. My dad died in August 1974, very unexpectedly. I did not want to be in this industry necessarily. I'd taught high school for 3 years, coached football, basketball, and baseball. And I told my father, I'll come back for 1 year and work for you. I'd worked some summers. And I said, then I'm going to law school. Thank you, I didn't. I think there's enough without me. Or coach college basketball. And by now I would have been in the Hall of Shame or retired or whatever. But I've been in the metals business 51 years. So I have seen a lot of companies and people come and go. And I'm really glad that I have been in the industry, but there certainly has been tremendous changes over those 51 years, and who the players are. As of those of you that are somewhat not as old as I am, but some of you that are out there will know what I'm talking about.
Well, I see only a few gray hairs and a very bulging wallet, so it's done well for you.
Pardon me? What?
And a big fat wallet. And only a few gray hairs. So.
Well, we have good credit. We have very good credit. We pay our bills.
Okay. Now, I want to switch before I know what your favorite topic is. I promise to come back to that, which is about the future of this industry and the business. But I was really excited, okay, to redo the prep reading, Eric. First of all, explain exactly what you do, and then I'll let you tell the story of what's coming on stream literally as we speak.
Sure, Terry. So I'm with Pure Aluminum. We're a brand new secondary aluminum plant outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it's really exciting. I've been doing this 35 years now, and it's the first time I've actually worked with a brand new startup smelter plant. So we've invested heavily what we feel are some really key areas. Automation is something that the owner of the company's put a lot of money into, and we feel it's, we'll be talking about some of these issues, but we feel that's going to be imperative to be competitive in other aspects of it. We've also put a lot of money into the environmental aspect of it, which is such a big thing with the carbon footprint and legacy issues and things of that nature. So it's an exciting time for us, to launch our new plan.
What exactly is this plant doing, and how will it impact, hopefully, maybe not just this one plant, but the direction of the industry?
Well, we're actually taking various grades of aluminum scrap. And what we did was, when we built this plant, we decided we wanted a diverse model. So we didn't want to produce just one type of alloy into one type of sector. So that was a real key for us, was to build a plant so we could supply numerous sectors, like the steel industry we supply, the die casting industry, the primary aluminum cast house. So that was a huge focus of ours. But I just feel like what we've done on the automation side, which I know we'll get into, but, the U.S. aluminum industry's invested over $10 billion in the last decade in manufacturing. So, and to Mark's point that he made about the opportunities that have come from some of these tariffs, what we're seeing is a lot of our customers are, getting inundated with quotes to produce parts that traditionally have been produced overseas.
Oh, so it's working at some level.
In some aspects, yeah. On the manufacturing side, I think a lot of these companies are getting asked to quote on things that were made offshore, and they're wanting to reshore those programs.
Okay, now you're having your first melt this week? What is
Monday? Yeah.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. So this didn't just start overnight. It didn't start in January with we're going to make manufacturing good in America again. Where was the incentive and where did the money come from to get this going? Must have been at least 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I have done, like you said, Mark's bulging wallet. I have 2 George Washingtons in my wallet, I think, as of right now. But no, the owner of the company owned a company called Franklin Metals, which he bought 20 years ago as a smaller scrap facility with a small reverb. He just saw the opportunities and the growth that our industries experience, and he also wanted to take a little bit of things into control. He was sending out a lot of his drosses and byproducts to third-party processors, so he wanted to initially just put a rotary furnace into his existing plant. But then he went out and bought 57 acres, and we built the new plant. Did
the state give you subsidies?
Yeah, we got help with the state, yes.
And so the question is this will there be more, both from your company and other companies, incentives now under the new administration to do this kind of green technology and efficiency and so forth? Or are you just lucky that you got in under the wire?
That's a great question. I think on the green initiative, it's like other initiatives that have come in the past. This administration might not be as proactive in certain things, right, than the past administration. But we think overall, the doing it the right way and to protect not only ourselves, but, our customers because of things like super funds and legacy issues. So, we wanted to do it so it's a plant that can be viable and solid for years.
Okay, so you've done it. It's happening. It's starting in a minute and a half. Did you run into all kinds of regulatory burdens when you talk about this, the demonstrating the lack of toxicity, the waste, the energy use and so forth?
Yeah, Michigan happens to be one of the tougher states.
I know.
We are going to be producing 20 million pounds of metal a month, and we're permitted to do 30 million on our site. But yeah, it's a lot goes into it with getting all the approval, especially in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, well, welcome to Illinois.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. I know that you both are looking to the future of the industry. Clearly, there's an opportunity here. Maybe we're not going to restart old smelters again, but there seems to be a path forward in the industry, both the scrap and the primary, or turning out the primary and so forth. And I know this is your big rallying call, Mark, and we had this, by the way, earlier in the steel panel, a sense that somehow this industry has to get over what used to be remember the old videos or film strips, I think they were in school, where it's a dirty, smelly, dangerous industry, and let the world know.
That was its good points back then.
That was its good one. It was always exciting to watch those molten things and guys in, suits. And, I grew up in Chicago, so the steel mills, the smell as you drove to Michigan and so forth. I think you have a big point to make about the future of the industry and getting across the importance of jobs here and the culture here. And I know that you've got a position now. You're almost emeritus. I know you're always going to be hands-on, but I'm just going to let you talk because I think others will be inspired a little bit by what you have to say.
Well, I hope so, but for what you guys are paying me, never mind. As far as the future, really, it comes down to we've got a product, aluminum, that unless something, again, is discovered next week or the week after or whatever, there is going to be demand for our product for the future, whether it be in the recyclability, the beverage industry. You're seeing the investment by some of these mills, especially for can sheet. We're very much involved in that business as far as a supplier, and we have been for a long time, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that. But as far as big picture for the industry, I think there's all kinds of opportunities. And I think a lot of it is just finding your niche. It really is. Not everybody, there was a book one time called Blue Ocean Strategy. I had to read it, many years ago. I was at a class at Harvard. In fact, for 20 years, I had 1 week, and finally they took so much of my money, they had to give me a degree after 8 years. But, this book was basically, what do you want to operate? You want to do what everybody else is doing, or do you want to find a place that you can be successful at? And I think, when I look at our company, the diversity over the years where we started, and, I wasn't thinking about culture the day, the funeral was Sunday, and Monday morning I was at work. We had 6 employees in a 10,000 square foot warehouse with no heat, a couple of trucks, and, I was more interested in, my mom was 46 and I had 3 younger siblings. I was more interested in making payroll. It wasn't like I was I inherited, cause people say, oh, did your grandfather start this? No, my grandfather's. But what happened over the years, is you try different things, you go into other areas. The biggest thing, and I'll talk about a little bit when I get into the culture thing, is to surround yourself with the best people you can. I mean, there are a lot of things that I'm not very good at, quite frankly. I kid people on my IT skills. If it was up to me, we'd be using smoke signals. So, but I do have about, I don't know, I have 12 or 14 IT people on and I'm not positive what they do all the time, but it seems to be whatever it is, we're getting better all the time. So it's exciting. And from a standpoint, now when you start talking about, putting in new primary smelters, you get on, somebody will be on television, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to spend, and then they don't say, well, it might be 7 years. Well, who knows what the next administration is going to say in the next 7 years or whatever, or, and the idea is, again, Canada was 85% of it,
Mm-hmm.
And if you really and I know I want to talk common sense, but
we want you to do that. That's what we're here for.
Why, we don't need to shoot ourselves in the foot. I mean, this is material that our consumers need, that, it means a lot to the success of companies and the pricing and everything. And I believe, and this is just my own, that this thing, even though I say, oh, it's not going away or whatever, it could go away tomorrow too.
Wait, what could go away tomorrow?
Huh?
What could go?
The Canadian tariff could go from 50 to 25 tomorrow.
Okay, which means you don't want to have be building in the middle of building a smelter.
Pardon me?
That means you wouldn't want to make a long-term capital and regulatory commitment.
If you're doing that, it's got to be one of those things that's strategic. The government says, okay, aluminum is a strategic metal, which they said it is now. And if we want to be able to control our own destinies, then maybe we should have some investments. Are we going to introduce enough primary smelting capacity to take care of our needs? No, at least not in my lifetime, but I'm old. Now, are there any babies in here? No. So you just never know.
Lucy, let me take you back to the big picture. The global picture. We've only talked about Canada and the U.S. Does the Far East, does China come in to this picture in any way, especially in the scrap market?
In the scrap market, I'm not sure, but there's, very little Chinese, there's no Chinese primary coming into the country. I mean, they've had, other duties and dumping duties imposed on them for a long time.
But are they independent, or do they import scrap from us?
They had been importing scrap from us. I think now more of that is staying here, but in the past, they were big importers of scrap.
That's what I read. So world trade patterns have also, I know it for sure in some of the other metals, copper especially, have been disrupted dramatically. But is aluminum that global a market, or is it more North American, I should say?
No, it's definitely a global market. I mean, besides, just North America and the Canadian production, the U.S. traditionally imports from everywhere. Right now, Russia's not an option for us, and China, pretty much that metal is staying in Asia. but there are other various South American and European sources and Middle East sources, but all of that now has been shut down with this 50% tariff cost.
Okay, so my question is, where is that going, and do they become more competitive by having the supply directed or kept in other countries? I mean, you talk about shooting ourselves in the foot, Mark, but to the extent that we have blocked imports from these producers, where is that material going, and does that make other countries, other smelting facilities more competitive with us, just in the market sense?
It doesn't, because any of those producers have to pay those tariffs to bring the metal here.
Oh yeah, but if they don't send it here, the question, and that's just, maybe it's not out of your territory, but it's a global market. So if it's not coming here,
it's staying closer to their own regions. It's going from Asia to Europe. It's going to Indonesia.
Okay, so is it making other processing plants more competitive with the U.S. and really hurting us?
Not necessarily, because those premiums are at different levels in Europe and in Asia. It's just the comparison of freight costs to bring to the U.S. plus the tariff cost, but that doesn't make it necessarily a windfall for them over there.
Okay, I just wondered that. So you have more to tell us.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to expand on what Mark was talking about, on the culture aspect of it. So I have some interesting facts here, but since 2013, the recycling and secondary aluminum industry has seen a 7% jump in new jobs. Just between 2022 and 2024, we've seen a 12.5%, but we've seen a 12.5% jump just in 2022 to 2024. And Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute are projecting, and I'm getting around to the culture aspect of it because this is really important, I feel. They're projecting that between now and 2024 and 2033, there's going to be a need in the manufacturing industry for 3.8 million new employees. And that's all real positive when you look at the manufacturing and the upside of it. But conversely, you look at the beginning of this year, there were 460,000 manufacturing positions open that weren't being filled. And then on top of that, you take your median tenure of your average employee, and that's salary and wage and hourly, is 3.9 years is what your average employee stays at one company. So when you look at that big picture, like Mark talked about, you see this big, huge, vast opportunity for jobs and for growth in manufacturing here, but you see a shortage of workers. So if you don't have the right culture to retain really quality workers, you're going to lose them because they're going to have a lot of other opportunities out into the industry. So it's incredibly important to, I always say in my career, and being included, I started out with Toyota when I first started in the metals industry, and I happened to be very fortunate. I had a mentor that made me feel like I was part of the company. Sometimes when you work for a foreign company, you can feel like you're on the outside, and he bridged that gap. So when you can include people on things and mentor them, they tend to take more ownership of their positions no matter what it is. And I think that's the ideal thing. And with this huge growth that we have, projections, all really exciting, but how do you retain, or how important it is to retain, key employees?
Is it for just small? This conversation's taken an interesting turn. We've gone off, things have changed in the aluminum industry. There's a tariff, there's supply issues and scrap premiums and so forth, to running your business, I think, in the aluminum industry. We have a wealth of knowledge here, so why not? We're going to give questions in just a moment. So, but the question is this just for large companies with all these vacancies, or does your advice to deal with culture apply to even smaller companies, some of which are here?
Yeah, absolutely. Both sides. And like I said, with this projection that is forecasted with this real promising expansion of manufacturing in the U.S., like I said, the job shortage, people are already facing issues on, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, about reshoring and automation. But yeah, it's critical. Culture is, I personally think at this stage of my career, who you're working with, who you're working around. I happen to be very blessed with a great group of people that I work with. So It makes everything. No one likes to wake up on a Sunday morning and say, oh my God, Monday's almost here, and I think if you can have that with a really productive company, you can't ask for much more.
I spoke to someone in the audience, a woman who is in charge of, won't detail the business. And I asked her, I said, gee, what's your, biggest problem? She said, trying to be friendly with everybody, like my crane operators, because that person could pick up your baby. It's a really valuable person, and making sure that person doesn't leave, because training someone and the problems with destroying equipment and everything is a real issue. Is that, Marcus, are you at that level where the people and are now paying them premiums to stay and to recruit? What's the state of employment?
Like I say, I kind of did a talk on this, but
I'm ready.
If you're ready,
go.
Okay. Well, one thing you have to remember too, if you're manufacturing, I don't know, 36 or 38 months in a row, the average for manufacturing, you want to be over 50 to show that we're going the right way. And we haven't done that. I don't know if it's just is it U.S. or worldwide for what?
Oh, it's U.S. manufacturing.
36 or 38 months? Yeah, that it's continually. Now, the other thing that you mentioned again is employees. I'm going to say it really, really quick, but the world is different. The young employees now, if you said, okay, you got $5 more a week, or I'm sorry, $5 more an hour for some of the benefits we have. A lot of these guys that are 19, 20, or women or whatever, I just want to know what I'm going to get on Friday. I don't care about my 401 a zillion years from now. I don't care about whatever. And again, the idea of having trying to find employees. If you look at our educational system, not just Michigan's not doing very well, but just the U.S. We have got to, if we're going to be successful as a country, that is our biggest thing. We are not educating a huge amount of our people. And if we don't do this, there's no way we're going to be successful in a number of ways. All right. Well, here we go.
Go.
All right.
I promise to interrupt you because I know we have questions, but give me the headlines.
Okay. No, this, every time, you do something, you want to leave something with somebody that they might remember. Okay.
Your turn.
So this is, if this was on national television, I might not do this. Okay. But we're going to tell you a story about a bull and a pheasant that were grazing upon a field. There's a huge tree at the edge of the field, and the pheasant looked up at the tree and very nostalgically said, "Alas, there was a time I could fly to the topmost branch of that tree. Now I do not even have enough strength in my wing to get to the first branch." The bull very nonchalantly said, "That's no issue. Just eat a little bit of my dung every day. You will get to the topmost branch of the tree within a fortnight." The pheasant said, "Oh, come on. What kind of rubbish is that?" The bull said, "Really, try and see. The whole humanity is on it." But the pheasant started pecking at the dung, and lo and behold, on the first day, instead, he reached the first branch of the tree. Within a fortnight, he did reach the topmost branch of the tree. He went and sat there at the topmost branch of the tree. He was just beginning to enjoy the scenery when the old farmer, who was rocking in his rocking chair, and saw a fat old pheasant sitting on the top of the tree. He pulled out his shotgun and shot the bird out of the tree. The moral of the story, this should be a political thing. Many times, even bullshit can get you to the top, but it never will let you stay there.
Amen. Applause. Amen.
Okay, and talking about culture, a lot of times people, they talk about culture and strategy. And it took me again, when I first got into the business, I sure the hell wasn't talking about culture. I was talking about survival. Now, in probably the last, I want to say maybe 15, 20 years, between education and learning and just seeing the effects of what good culture means to companies versus, and again, in my 51 years, you know how many companies I've seen come and go, how many people in our industry I've seen come and go, and, for various reasons. if you have the right people, you'll figure out the strategy. The wrong people, it doesn't matter what your strategy is. It won't matter. But if you got the right people, you will. And another one, what I did is I wrote just some things that I've, little quotes and things that mean things to me. One is success versus significance. And I think this has to do with our culture. A lot of people judge success basically, well, let's see, what kind of house does he have? What kind of car does he have? How much money does they think you have? And that's success. But significance, do you make a difference in anyone else's life? Now, it can be your neighbor, it could be a relative, it could be a co-worker, but everybody can be significant, in some way or another. One of the things that it's on my wall, I was I don't know how much time I have, but it's been there since, it was in 1941, a paper mill in Kalamazoo, anyway, published a calendar every month, and they always had some kind of a saying. And this one I thought was extremely significant to our culture. There's nothing nearly as clever as honesty and sincerity. The idea is we're not here to outsmart our customers, our employees, our communities, or whatever. That's not we're here to figure out how together we can do things. And again, that saying is hung up in my office. Some of the things for culture that we've been able to do. And again, employees don't care about the company until you know that they care about them, for sure. We have a clinic for our employees that we put in 7 or 8 years ago because a lot of people don't have primary physicians, and this gave them an opportunity. And just to give you an idea, when we sat down and discussed it, some of my guys, well, what's this going to cost? What's the ROI? And I basically said, guys, I don't give a damn what the ROI is. It's the right thing. And it goes back to, again, one of my favorite people, Mark Twain, who once said, you never go wrong doing the right thing. And I think sometimes, you'll get punished for it a little bit in business, but 90% of the time, if that's how you operate your business, people want to do business with you, people want to come to work for you, and people want to stay. We have about 600 employees. So I said, I got to get this thing. We had a picnic the other day for 1,200 people. 27 employees that had 10, 20, 30, or 40 years. And we do this every year with their children and this and that. And we have them come up and we honor them and we give them a certain amount of cash, this, that, and whatever. And we don't care if you're a vice president or you're a forklift driver. You get to basically be respected in front of all these people. And I think these are the kind of things that really make a difference. Profits matter, but people matter more. Give people the power and freedom to care for each other. Trust that people want to do well and good, and see how these attitudes create value for everyone. There's a couple books that I kind of thought about because actually Jordan sends me books sometimes, but many years ago I read a book by Bill George, and I don't know how many who Bill George is, but he was the CEO of Medtronic from 1991 to 2001. He took that company from 1.1 billion to 60 billion in his leadership, and he did this on having a culture that was much different than it. He wrote a book called North. What was it? North. I should think of it. True North, which has to do with your values. Amazing book. And he just wrote something the other day called Courage. It was an article in a magazine, and he talked about courage. If you have a culture, and the world around you is changing all the time, as it is every day. You can go here or there or change what you do. But if you're consistent with keeping your culture, people want to know where they stand, that you have the chances to be a lot more successful. The other one that Jordy sent me, which I really liked, was by Bob Chapman. If you're out of St. Louis, that's the Barry Wingmiller company. They have about 80 facilities. But the story, he starts out, he had a company and a family and then went like this. And then he decided, hey, I got to do things totally different. And what he did is he changed his culture, totally different. Bob believes in caring for employees and people like their family. Now, I'm going to do these real quick and we'll get out of here, but these are 10 of the commandments that I really, really like. Begin every day with a focus on lives you touch. Know that leadership is the stewardship of the lives entrusted to you. Embrace leadership practices and send people home each day safe, healthy, and fulfilled. Align all actions to an inspirational vision of a better future. Trust the foundation of all relationships and act accordingly. Look for the goodness in people and recognize and celebrate it daily. Ask more or less of anyone that you would your own child. Lead with a clear sense of grounded optimism. Recognize and flex to the uniqueness of everyone. Always measure success by the way you touch the lives of people. And I think from a successful, I could go on, I got all kinds of how you treat people and this and that and whatever. And,
can we have those
okay.
10 commandments? And can I ask Annette, you must be circulating an email to everybody to say thanks for coming. Yes? I got a big nod. I think that's worth reprinting and sending out to
The price is
everyone.
right. We can have it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, where on earth? I was wrapped. I hope you were in rapt attention. That was your Harvard class times 10. I bet there are some questions out there. That doesn't mean to cut you off because I know you have more to say.
No, that's fine.
But I know that there
enough.
were people, and whether they are questions about the aluminum markets, the spread, the scrap, the mechanics, as you started talking about, of managing your inventory, and if anything's changed, especially given the uncertainty of either exemptions or changes of mind in Washington. Anybody out there? Annette's standing in the middle. She's got a microphone, and right there. Okay. Would you give your name and your company?
Okay, one thing before we...
All right.
We have 18 facilities we operate out of now. We operate out of Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, a number of facilities in Michigan, and they're all diversified from distribution, manufacturing, trading. Well, I think we did business in 32 countries last year. We built 2 new plants in the last 2 years, about $50 million in investment for one's very, very green, one in Kalamazoo and one in Russellville, Kentucky, that does stuff for the beverage. But you have to invest, and you just need to make sure it's the right things.
For an aw shucks guy, you hide your brilliance pretty well until you get going. All right, question from the audience.
Okay, Kevin Moore, and a lot of people know me, and I know guys on the panel. What this is I call it a scrap. This is a scrap industry, but now it's called recycling, so I'm sorry if I screw
I would say...
Yeah, right. You're not allowed to say scrap anymore. But the people in here, I know a lot of them, and they're very diverse in size and differences. And we keep hearing about revolutions and all that. I believe in evolutions. What are we doing today? What can these companies take away? They just spend a lot of money. They're all talking. They're all thinking, well, how do you develop your company from here to provide more value? And we all know, first of all, you must have price, delivery, reliability, quality, and always let your customer know in advance, not ask for forgiveness. That's the basis of success. But what am I going to take back if I'm these different companies that can help me grow, evolve, and Jordan's kids, 50 years, they could talk about great grandpa and grandpa, how they did it, and they can continue to grow. How do we sustain? How do we grow? What's the value that I got out of this meeting? And from your
I'm going to first turn to, that's a great question, better than the one I was trying to come up with. I'm going to turn first to Eric because you're literally putting your money where your mouth is on this. So why don't you tackle that first?
Yeah, I probably had one quote here that I wanted to share, and it ties in with Mark and it ties into Kevin's question. But we're talking a lot about our new plant with the automation and all the things that we're doing because of all the right reasons for it. But, I think one of the best quotes, and Kevin, to your point, is the best technology will not save a toxic and disengaged workplace. So, we're looking at being very, very state-of-the-art automation, but the people that you have and the people that you include in your company and mentor them, mentoring and programs, and like Mark said too, a data boy. I mean, you can't believe how far that goes in the end of, for any job. Just people feeling like they're wanted and part of a culture is, I think, the ultimate success that you can have. You're going to have technology and you're going to have all the bells and whistles, but I think it's very, very important to close in. You'll never ever replace from the day of time till however long of a positive workforce.
Yeah, let me ask a question back out to you. So we've just read in the last couple of months that OpenAI is paying, or Apple or whoever it is paying $1 million sign-on bonuses. I mean, that's getting the attention of a generation that believes you have to, go to MIT and then be some kind of an engineer. I met a couple of them and I looked at them and they used to be kids playing games that their mother's telling them to get off the computer, and those are the ones that are getting the $1 million sign-on bonuses. But it strikes me that what you're talking about are not necessarily college degrees, but what are you doing to go out in the world, high school, and let people know that all this talk going over their heads about reshoring and manufacturing in the U.S. is leading to real good paying jobs in companies that care? Anybody in the audience reaching out at the high school level besides, take my daddy to school day? Any thoughts on that? I mean, because I think there's a younger generation that really doesn't get it, I mean, seriously, I think they think Sanford's and Sons, and ReMA is doing a great job of bringing you all together, but I think there's a message as a whole for the industry about opportunity.
In Kalamazoo, they just finished, they just moved in. It's really close to $100 million operation for vocational training. Everything from CNC operators to electricians to, I don't know, you name it. And that's what they're starting with high school kids and whatever. And, but that's, because we know if you want to attract anybody, unfortunately, now I don't want to get into politics, but Michigan is no longer a right to work state. So if you're non-union, you wouldn't be excited about coming to Michigan necessarily. Whatever. But I think too, what we're all talking about, and I think Eric was right on it. I didn't realize how important HR was till probably 10 years ago. I thought these were people that just, filled out the papers, made sure we didn't screw up on this or that or whatever. But what it is like, again, making sure you attract the best people you can for the job. There's a guy that he passed away. We have a golf tournament we've had for 20 years. He passed away from diabetes. Incredible guy. Rich Holtz was, in fact, we named a road after him in Wixom, Michigan that we have a plant on. But his always thing, the guy with the best army wins. And we talk about that. And it's really true, is, when we started, our trading group, Andy McKee was the guy that started it for us, and we had some input from other Tom Emmerich and I don't know how many other people that we wanted this trading group. And the first thing we said to Andy McKee, go out and hire the best people there are in the country, not the cheapest, not the the best. I think Andy will tell you, I think we paid him too much, but other than that, no, I'm just kidding. But and it is going to make the difference, and for every company. I'd rather have 3 guys that really do a great job that I can pay well than 6 guys that do just an average job that it's hard to pay them much more money. I don't know if you saw Costco, what they're doing. If you look, they've gone in some places from $20 an hour to $30 an hour for their hourlies. And they say, well, how do you do that? He says, because we want the best employees we can get, and we want them to have a decent life. And that's a pretty strong ambition now. Unfortunately, not everybody can do that, but I think it's going that way though.
They got some publicity for that, and more people, obviously, that were qualified went, oh, well, I'm just going to check out Costco instead of FedEx or Amazon. And they probably got a better group of people. Now I know, because I was given these strict instructions, that this group, the lady with the lawyer has moved. Okay, so maybe I can get away with, there she is in the back. Oh. I know you can't talk about price, and collusion is a terrible word and all that, but it strikes me as an opportunity for ReMA to maybe make this message go out into for you to help the association take the message out into your communities with internships at the high school level. I don't know if that's feasible because people have to be trained and so forth. But it strikes me that this industry is going to have to get together and make people aware of what you all are saying is very compelling, that there are real jobs and you're not just walking around in steel-toed boots, but that there's real opportunity, there's real benefits, there's real career opportunity, not just so much the good hourly wages.
The service center industry is doing the same thing. The metal service center is with programs to do that. Exactly what you're talking about too.
It's a generation that's still interested in green, even if it's not politically the front burner. Don't you think that's a differentiating point there?
Absolutely. And, sorry.
Go ahead.
Losing my mic. Sorry. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we hired a few gentlemen recently, and I just this weekend apologized to one of them because I've been, getting ready for this event, and we've got this new plant launch, and, I haven't taken the time to really, realize that person's just started and they're kind of on an island trying to get acclimated to our company. And, it hit me the other night when I was sitting there and I was thinking, if I was in that person's shoe and I just started with the company,
how would I feel?
How would I feel? And
yeah, so I think we've gone from this being a metals business to a people business. We have a couple of questions. First in line there, please.
Hi, thank you, panel. Thank you, Terry. David Brooks from Argus Media. Question on the tariffs, probably for Lucy. Am I right in thinking that despite the tariffs, primary aluminum is still coming in? And if so, who's paying the tariff, the buyer or the seller? And as we go forward, presumably that's really a market question in terms of who pays it, right? So who needs it more? Does the buyer need the metal more, or do the Canadians need the customers in the US more in terms of who will have the leverage in terms of who pays the 50%?
Well, I mean, the Canadians have not stopped shipping to the U.S., especially since their obligations for 2025 were already in place. So one way or another, they've ensured their customers to get their metal for this year. I think the focus is more toward next year, toward 2026, and on new business. If the premiums don't come up high enough to compensate them to ship to the U.S., then that's an issue for supply into next year, unless the tariff changes.
Does Canada have a good plan B? I mean, are there willing buyers all around the world? That's what I was trying to get at before.
Yes, they seem to have, enough, especially in Europe now with CBAM coming in 2026. Most of the Canadian metal is very green. And they feel that they can divert a good deal of their metal. They won't abandon the U.S. market completely. Everybody those producers would like to keep their market share here. I think eventually something has to either happen with price to incentivize them to come to the U.S. for next year, because we really need that metal. So I think ultimately that's probably what will happen unless there's a change in the tariffs.
And something happening with prices at premiums, or is that?
Yes. Midwest premiums will have to go up further.
Hedging. Okay, we can't talk price. Next question.
So I'm Gerald Coleman, and I work for ReMA. I'm the Senior Vice President for Advocacy, Sustainability, and Safety. And I just wanted to let those of you who are ReMA members know that we have a strong workforce development program. We have a program where we help our members be able to provide apprenticeships, internships, fellowships to students who are starting in high school all the way up through the trade schools or through the college path. So if you are interested, we have toolkits. You must be a ReMA member. And we also have connections in the states in order to help you be able to access the reimbursement possibilities that are within the states. Some states reimburse employers when they host apprentices on their sites. And we have all of that information available, and we're happy to share it with you.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Okay, well, obviously it wasn't an original creative idea of your ReMA's already doing it. Other questions? And that's standing out there with their hand raised and the microphone. All right. Well, let's just take a quick look at anything left. No, anybody out there? Everybody's afraid to talk because they're afraid the lawyers will point the pencil at them, but I think. So is there anything, I want to know if there's anything left unsaid. I'm going to wait for you and give you the last word, Mark. Let me start with you, Eric. You came with a page of notes. We have a few minutes left. Nobody else has questions. What is it that you most wanted to say that either expands on the topics we've talked about or breaks new ground?
Yeah, I think the overall theme, as we've kind of talked about today, is, the exciting opportunity that's going on in our industry. Obviously, a lot of exciting projects and investments. And so we talked a little bit about the culture and how important it is to retain key employees. But, this reshoring also, I think, is something that I had quite a bit notes on. But, people think the reshoring surge just kind of evolved in these recent tariffs. But, in reality, after 2008, when we were coming out of the recession, there was a big push to start reshoring here more in the United States. Under President Obama, you had the Select U.S. Program, and then we ran into, as everyone realized, with the semiconductor issues that we had a few years ago, and there's been like $600 billion invested in new plants here. And so on the die casting and our side, which everyone's here for, there's a big momentum, like I said earlier, Terry, with people telling us that they're inundated with quotes. And I think that's, it's a really exciting time, for us here, for sure.
Well, there's an upbeat way to end it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Lucy, from the trading point of view, so what haven't we said? Does this have to do with, I just threw out the word hedging because you know my background from the exchanges, but do you think that the uncertainty will require more hedging? Do you see more volume, more volatility? Not looking at price, but looking at the markets. Is there some thoughts you have on that you haven't had a chance to say?
It's really still very imperfect in terms of the hedging opportunities with prices where they are currently. You're familiar with the CME. That's probably the only area where we can even look at hedging Midwest premium risk, and there's not enough liquidity in there to really do it properly, and the forward spread on premium is quite low when you go further out, so that doesn't provide a really true hedge for current prices. So
okay, quick sidebar. Full disclosure, in my net worth, I'm a significant shareholder in CME. It doesn't matter to CME, but over all these years. So I'm going to speak a little bit. Whose fault is that? Is that the fault of the structure of the contract? I'll call right after this. Or is that the fault of the fact that the industry doesn't use hedging enough? The lack of liquidity. I'm sure CME would like to know.
I'm not really sure what the answer to that is, but, there's also, it's just the uncertainty that's driving that lack of liquidity, because that's creating the backwardation.
Okay, so liquidity is always the key in all markets.
Yeah.
Attention. Okay. And if it were more liquid, it would be more useful. It's not a flaw in the design.
Yes, I think that's true.
Okay, I was personally interested in that. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of looking forward from the trading aspect, the stuff that you follow? We've talked about big concepts about the future of the industry and green and culture and jobs, but you're looking at it on a much more immediate basis. And I was surprised to know that there's not a lot of vision of availability to see what's going on in the marketplace except in the futures market. So you're on top of it on a daily basis. Any other thoughts for people out there who are concerned about what the price is today or what's happening on the bid and offer side?
I wish I had those answers, but I don't think any of us do, really, because we're not controlling it. So it's difficult to really give you a forecast of what's going to happen. Ultimately, the markets will be efficient somehow and take care of the problem.
We believe in markets.
Yeah.
Okay, we believe you watching them for us at Traxxas. Okay.
I think one of the things that's going to change or has been changed and it's not firmed, is looking at with your consumers more longer term contracts. Yeah, we found a number of our consumers would like to have something where they're talking about down the line, not just a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years or whatever. And we think if we can come up with some flexibility too, to make sure that we're not out to beat them or them to beat us, that there's some flexibility. But we think that, I think just personally, that'll make things, for the future better.
Define that a little bit more. We do have another question. I'm going to get to it. Well, what were you trying to say?
Well, it would be, let's say we negotiate, I don't know, I mean, millions of pounds for one of our items we handle a lot of. And if let's say we go to our consumers, say, if we did this for 2 years or 3 years, let's have some kind of a formula. And if, for example, somehow it gets way out of whack one way or the other, that we're able to sit down with each other so that nobody gets really hurt. And I think more and more developing those kind of relationships with your consumers, and again, it's a little harder, with your day-to-day, obviously, customers and everything else. But I think in the long term, that will be the way things move.
Interesting
I think that's
thought.
the direction.
Interesting thought. We do have a question there. Go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for answering our questions. My name is Alex Igarashi. I'm with Daiki Aluminum. This is just a general question for the market. With the market, you're talking about tariffs and everything kind of driving. Do you think there's any companies that'll try and take initiative to do their own thing rather than be responsive? Think anyone will be proactive rather than reactive?
In what regard do you mean? What are you thinking?
Well, the tariffs are driving everything.
Right.
So rather than be reactive about that and just wait and see, does anyone think that there are going to be major companies that are proactive in their approach rather than
reactive? What is proactive? Define that, just so we could get our people to answer.
Well, we're just following the tariffs. We're just waiting and watching the numbers, watching the prices. We're not making our own decisions, right? We're kind of following the status quo.
I don't know the industry, but Eric, you have any thought on that?
Yeah, I know what you're saying and what your question is, but some of the things like Lucy said and Marcus said, there's certain things that are out of all of our control in terms of the tariffs, as you alluded to. But I think companies are being proactive in other ways, right? To try to take things into their own control, like the shortages of workforce. So putting in automation, trying to retain clients. There's certain things on the metal side that ultimately, like Mark said and Lucy, that we could wake up tomorrow and things are drastically different. So you kind of have the ebb and flow with what you're dealt with. But I do think people are companies are trying to be proactive, especially for the opportunities that are evolving here in the U.S.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that's a pretty, did I leave anything unsaid? I'm going to let you have the last words, sir. The last words of advice.
Well, the last words of advice would come from my mother. She always said it's easier to give somebody the shirt off your back if you happen to have another. But if we're ever successful, that we're going to do something to make a difference in our environment, our communities, and whatever. So that's my last word.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Eric. And thank you to the whole audience for chipping in too. Have a good day.